Ladies and gentlemen, I have always stuck by a creed. I've always stuck by a motto, a reasoning for why I've been doing a lot of reacts, a lot of content on, well, you can see by the title here, MrPokke. The reason why I've done all of these things is pretty simple. I like MrPokke as a person, but I hate his takes. It's like the opposite of J.K. Rowling, where you might hate J.K. Rowling as a person, but you might love the takes or the products or the books that she produces. For me, it is the opposite. And ever since Pokke decided to swear off of war way back in the day, you know, he had that whole conversation with Tectone. They sort of hashed it out, and then Pokke committed to, you know, no longer starting war, no longer getting into Gacha tribalism, no longer being a fuel for that fire. I basically stood off. I took off completely. I haven't made any content, any reacts, haven't done anything about him since. However, it is fair to say that yesterday, or maybe really 2 days ago, depending on the time zone that you're in, yesterday, Pokke did sort of relapse. It's fair to say that if we're gonna say that people just are ignorant or unknowledgeable, 58% don't play HSR, 1% are bots, now we're accusing them of AI, and we're saying basically how all of these people are either dumb or uneducated or just simply wrong. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I think it's fair to say when we're comparing two games like Wuthering Waves and HSR, we're talking about things like who's the better free-to-play main character. We're not actually making arguments here. We're just stating facts about the game and then saying we're right without a reason why. Some could say that this is creating war. This is providing more fuel for the fire. And so I just went ahead. I decided to see, well, it's kind of clear why people are upset with this. It's pretty clear where the anger or the shattered expectations or the disappointment could be coming from. And so that's why we're going to be reacting to this video today. We have all of the context when it comes to this whole situation of how rage bait fuels the Gacha tribalism war. And as we can see, ladies and gentlemen, just yesterday, he did it again. So let's dive right on into it. Take it away, Mr. Keo.
All right, let's dive into something that has been driving me and probably you nuts lately. Gacha tribalism. I mean, it's not like it's a new problem, but it's gotten insanely out of hand. Fans are fighting like sports teams instead of just enjoying the games. But you all know I've covered the Kurobots versus Hoyoshou's drama before, and honestly, I've even played a part in stoking these debates on my channel. I get it, when you're deep into your favorite game, defending it feels almost like defending your virginity, which I have been really good at considering I haven't lost it. Today, I want to explore how figures like MrPokke are fanning the flames of this tribalism, what that means for the community, and if we're lucky, how we might steer the conversation towards something even more constructive. In other words, let's see if we can actually talk about the game quality and monetization without it turning into an internet brawl.
Well, we could just pointlessly talk about the game mechanics all day when the two games are openly not really related in terms of anything. And so trying to judge one as better than the other is almost like a moot argument to make in the first place, and only serves to stoke conflict between the communities. But do keep in mind that's what we did here. That's what we did here by comparing HSRs and all of its various different combat mechanics to Wuthering Waves and all of its various different combat mechanics, and trying to say that one character is better than the other. It's almost like a self-defeating argument in the first place, and it's just being made to rage bait even more.
But first, what exactly is Gacha tribalism? It's this phenomenon where fans treat their favorite games like it's a part of their identity. Instead of just playing different games or even admitting that every game has its flaws, people dig in and start attacking anyone who criticizes their million-dollar company or praises a rivaling million-dollar company. The result? Our discussions quickly turn into endless and pointless internet wars. Imagine trying to talk about a game's monetization or gameplay balance, only to have the conversation derailed by someone yelling, "Your game is trash and mine is the only way to go."
I think the biggest example that I have regarding this situation is talking about power creep in a game like Honkai Star Rail, a game that the devs have acknowledged themselves is absurd and that they need to buff the older units and that it's become very hard to use them. The second that a Wuwa creator starts talking about how bad the power creep is in a game like HSR or ZZZ, instead of the HSR or ZZD players recognizing that and saying, yeah, the power creep is not that good, you know what they say? Doesn't matter, because power creep's gonna come to Wuthering Waves too. Wuthering Waves is a gacha game as well, so it's gonna get power creep too. So stop talking about the one in HSR. That was the argument. That was the take that these individuals had. And as you can tell, if even the devs themselves decided to acknowledge it, that was probably the worst take to have in that situation. But that's just how gacha tribalism works, ladies and gentlemen. People say shit that literally does not make sense.
It's my $1 million company. These battles over personal opinions don't just get noisy. They often completely drown out any serious conversation about how the games can actually improve.
One idea that would make Genshin Impact feel way better: when you run parties with characters that have interactions, they will interact while you play.
It's like arguing about which pizza topping is better when the oven is broken. And we all know pineapple works on pizza. But hey, Glaive, why does gacha tribalism exist in the first place? First of all, let's talk about the investment. For these people that support the gacha tribalism, gacha games aren't just casual pastime. They are a serious commitment. These players spend hundreds of hours grinding and often a good chunk of cash on these games. So when someone criticizes your favorite game, it almost feels like they're attacking your life choices. Once you're this invested, it's hard not to go into full defense mode even if the game has obvious issues.
And we call that, ladies and gentlemen, the sunk cost fallacy of no return. The sunk cost fallacy of no return, where simply due to the fact that you spent money, you now have to defend all of the money that you spent, even though in Hoyoverse games, it's been demonstrably proven. The best way to increase your value in a Hoyo game for the previous money you spent is to not spend any more money. Because guess what? When people stop spending money in ZZZ, they fix the fucking game. When people stop spending money in Honkai Star Rail, they said they're gonna start fixing the fucking game. You wanna know why Genshin hasn't been fixed yet? It's because people have not stopped spending money on Genshin yet. And I guarantee you, the second that Genshin's revenue falls pretty significantly or falls dramatically, they will start fixing the fucking game. They will start fixing the fucking game. They just need to start losing money first.
It's like you bought a new iPhone and someone tells you that Samsung is just better. You're not gonna let that slide without a fight. Now let's be honest, the companies behind these games are no saints either. They design mechanics and marketing strategies that deliberately pit communities against each other. Take for example how Hoyoverse would schedule their Genshin update livestream on the same day that Wuthering Waves was set to update with 1.1. This forced Kuru Games into a kind of reactive cat and mouse chase that only made fans even more defensive. And finally, we got the content creators. Let's face it, drama sells. Rage bait posts and inflammatory hot takes generate tons of clicks, views, and revenue. The more outrageous the content, the more people tune in, and the more money flows.
Why is EO catching strays again? Come on, guys. It's like, it's every video at this point, Glaive. It's every video at this point, Glaive. I feel like bro hasn't even said anything. Bro hasn't even said anything in like literally over a month, and he's still catching strays.
The industry thrives on keeping us all emotionally engaged in these tribal debates instead of focusing on real improvements. When discussions revolve around which game is better purely on fan loyalty, the actual issues like monetization problems or design flaws get completely ignored. But let's talk about this one content creator that is constantly fueling the fire recently. MrPokke, the LeBron James of Hoyo Shills.
Is that a valid nickname, guys? The LBJ? The LBJ of the Hoyo Shills? The actual nation of war is Poke's village. Fuck Natlan.
Or actually not even Hoyo Shills. He has been talking smacks to Hoyo Shills too. Somehow he's making everyone fight. But anyways, this isn't about making a well-reasoned argument. It's about being outrageously loud. MrPokke doesn't need to be right. He just needs to shout loud enough to get everyone's attention. Every controversial take he drops is engineered to spark fights and keep his name trending.
Engineered to start fights and keep the criticism or the rage baiting trending. I would have to say that I'm not sure how intentional some of it is. You could also view it as like he's posted a lot of long-winded explanations that almost contradict the idea that it was intentional in the first place. You put up that post over here, right, of the whole ZZZ's combat is a lot better than Wuwa. Poke wrote like a 10-paragraph essay trying to justify how this was an okay tweet and how everyone reacting to it was like being absolutely a freak. I don't think it's really that intentional. I'm going to be honest. I really don't think it is, especially after that.
The more chaos he causes, the more relevant he becomes. Every time he ruffles some feathers with his outrageous opinions, whether it's justifying the company's predatory behavior or straight up victim blaming, he's essentially banking on controversy. And wow, has he been cancelled more than once. In fact, he has been cancelled multiple times in just the month of January. Yet he always manages to spin it all into a win. Instead of disappearing into obscurity, he positions himself as the the misunderstood hero, the one who's being unfairly attacked by a sensitive crowd. He is everything Io wanted to be. It's a cycle. Outrage sparks engagement, engagement boosts his profile, and then he flips the narrative to claim that he is the only one that should be getting praise. What's really fascinating is how MrPokke has built his online persona around a sort of duality. At first, he says that he wants peace, love, and happiness 2025, but then one minute he's a provocateur, calling his own community stupid and greedy, and then blaming Kuro bots for the hate that he receives back.
And it's kind of wild when you lay it all out like this. I'm not gonna lie, bro. This is not good. This is not good. Glaive has every receipt. Glaive has every receipt. This is not that good. Ooh, this is a bit rough. This is starting to turn into like one of those scenes. You guys know that scene in the movies or that scene in the television show where you start getting secondhand embarrassment. You start getting secondhand embarrassment for the character on the screen. And so you decide to start like fast forwarding the video. Yeah, this is like, I want to fast forward through this part because I'm starting to feel the secondhand embarrassment. That's exactly what I'm feeling here.
Blaming the victim and then playing the victim himself. And then the next moment, he tries to play the peacemaker, as if he's the voice of reason in the sea of madness. This constant flip-flopping ends up in confusing viewers. Are you supposed to see him as the Gacha Jesus or just an idiot with a megaphone? Either way, his contradictory stance only fuels more debates, and it leaves us all scratching our heads. After he set the community on fire, MrPokke's typical response is to engage in damage control. Instead of owning up to the chaos he created, he fires off a long-winded, condescending threads that boil down to simple message. It's not me, it's you. I should be the only one getting praised. He even uses the mirror metaphor, as if he's showing the community its own flaws. And honestly, if you're going to hand out mirrors, maybe take a good look at your own reflection first.
Ooh, it's like Glaive took all of my vids on Pokke, boiled them down, made himself a little potion, and then turned it into this video. Man, this is, if you're familiar with the Pokke content that I created in the past, this is kind of... It's like all of it in one.
MrPokke. And yes, when you look in the mirror, you're handsome, tall, muscular, very, very charming, funny, energetic, caring, smart, logical. But I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about your online behavior, buddy. It's like he's saying, see, you're the problem, while completely ignoring the fact that he lit the fire in the first place. And the result of it, the community becomes even more divided, toxic, and less capable of having any meaningful discussion.
Case in point. Why is this even being debated in the first place? Why would this even be debated in the first place? One is a turn-based game. One is an action RPG where you can dodge and parry. Why would we even get into an argument about which one is a better free-to-play main character? And this is the other thing. What leg do we have to stand on to say this discussion or to say that the results of this poll are wrong when we don't play Wuthering Waves? I think that's the most important one. We don't play Wuwa. And then we're getting into like this whole like trying to say it's all factual in the debate. We're trying to say everything here is like factual, no war, but like you're wholly misrepresenting one side of the argument here because you don't play the game. And I guess that's where it's like everyone's just like, well, what is even going on, man? How is this anything but war?
Instead of addressing real issues like game quality, monetization, or even constructive criticism, the focus shifts entirely to these endless tribal wars. Ironically, this is the very chaos MrPokke claims he wants to fix. His actions only reinforce the toxic environment he criticizes, leaving us all wondering what it means. Let's contrast the wildfire of tribalism with a refreshing alternative, Gacha Smack's approach. Unlike the endless bickering we see from content creators, Gacha Smack has shown us that you can offer genuine praise without igniting a war. For example, his tweet about Zenless Zone Zero's minigames was all about celebrating what they do well. He said something like, the Zenless Zone Zero team is doing a phenomenal job with their arcade and minigames, and then went on a rave about how these games capture the fun of titles like Vampire Survivors and Fall Guys. The point is clear. You can share a positive opinion without coming off as aggressive.
Turns out that's crazy. Yes, you're allowed to say that something is good. And yes, you can even put down other games in the process of saying that something is good. Just be right. Just be correct about it. If you know that the statement that you're trying to make cannot actually be proven or is extremely controversial to lean towards one side or another because it can't be proven, why make such definitive statements about it when we know that because neither side can really be proven, it's going to be controversial? Just be right.
Or dismissive towards other games. Gacha Smack's second tweet reinforces this idea. He points out that as long as you you don't single out or aggro a community, sharing your honest opinion is totally acceptable. He even emphasizes that his credibility comes from a long track record of fair and balanced opinions. It's a reminder that when content creators are consistent and measured in their critiques, the community tends to respond with support or at the very least, respectful indifference. The lesson here is simple. Real credibility isn't built on endless rage bait. It comes from fairness and a willingness to engage in balanced discussions. If we all started keeping it fair and in good faith, maybe, just maybe, we could shift the conversation from petty tribal wars to genuine improvements in game design, monetization practices, balancing, and overall player experience.
And guess what? We bitched and moaned enough about the power creep in HSR as players. We complained enough, and now the devs have promised to fix the fucking game. It turns out that sometimes complaining and saying that the game is not good when the game is not good is exactly how you fix the game. Instead of saying that, you know, we all remember what MrPokke said. He said that Honkai Star Rail was in an amazing, fantastic state, and that no changes needed to be made to older characters. Brother, it's unfortunate when even the devs themselves have proven that wrong. Glazing a game is fine, in my opinion. Glazing a game is fine if the game deserves glazing. And Honkai Star Rail in its current state is one of the least deserved glazings probably in the market.
Now imagine the gacha community could actually talk about games without every conversation turning into an all-out internet war. Picture a space where you can say, I like Wuthering Waves' combat, I like Genshin's lore, and no one immediately explodes in the comments. Instead of instantly labeling you as a traitor, people might actually consider your opinion, even if they disagree. It's a community where fans share ideas, insights, and constructive criticism without it devolving into a fight club. What if, instead of pitting our fandoms against each other over every little detail, we shifted our focus to real issues? Imagine discussions that tackle topics that actually matter in the game.
Why do you think that one of my view counts for an HSR video, right? A game that I don't really make content on, it was at 150k views, and it talked about how bad the storytelling was in HSR 3.0. Just how garbage it was, how unplayable it made the entire update. That meant that players were looking for that sort of content, and nobody in the HSR space was making it because they were afraid to talk badly about the game. They had to search for a Wuthering Waves content creator to actually find coverage of a debate like that. That's how insane it was. Hate Watchers, it had like a 90-something% like ratio. HSR players literally had to find CCs outside of HSR to even see actual complaints about the storytelling. That is how bad the glazing for the game has gotten. And it's unfortunate. It's really unfortunate.
A space where debates are less about defending our personal investments and more about actually making the games better for everyone. Picture a place where our passion drives innovation instead of fueling endless tribal loyalty. Now, I know this vision is wildly naive. Gacha companies thrive on drama. They bank on our emotional investments and our need to defend our choices. It sounds like a utopia, and maybe it is, but even a small shift in focus could make that big difference. Sure, it might seem like we're dreaming too big, but what if we started asking ourselves whether we're fighting because the game is truly bad or simply because we've been conditioned to take any critique as a personal attack? Games are meant to be fun. Now, I know that some tribalism will always be around and it's part of the culture at this point. Maybe if we could step back and think critically about our debates, we would realize that improving our gaming experiences is way more important than who wins in an internet argument. So while my vision might be a little bit of an idealistic daydream—
Glaive, you're on crack. This is never gonna happen. Glaive, you're on crack. This is never gonna happen. You wanna know why? It's because as long as you have content creators, or basically the biggest voices in the community, on the payroll of the company, this can never happen. It literally can never happen because they will be paid to run defense. They will be paid to switch the agenda, to switch the topic, and have the discussion lead somewhere else. They will literally be paid to do that. And when the biggest voices in the community have that very clear ulterior motive when it comes to any sort of conversation like this, it's just simply not gonna happen. Dewey may cry again. Gacha ain't gonna get healed.
It's a reminder that our collective energy could be better spent making the space more welcoming and productive, one balanced discussion at a time. Now let's wrap this up. We've seen how gacha tribalism has evolved into an all-out war zone fueled by our personal investments and a culture of endless online battles. We have dissected why this happens, whether it's the money and the time we pour into these games, the tactics devs use to pit us against each other, or the rage bait strategies of content creator like MrPokke. We've also looked at a more balanced approach through Gacha Smack's example, proving that it's possible to celebrate what's good in our games without sparking a digital brawl. At the end of the day, we just want to enjoy our games and see real improvements. But you know, maybe we also want to waste our energy on petty fan wars. that's okay too. But the point of this video is that if we can shift our focus from tribal loyalty to constructive criticism, maybe the gacha space can finally start addressing the issues that actually matter. If you're still getting riled up by every tweet and meme, just ask yourself, are you fighting for a better game, or are you just MrPokke?
Are you fighting for a better game, or are you just MrPokke? I gotta say, overall, pretty nice summary for Glaive. I think he really encapsulated the whole situation. He basically hit on every single point where a lot of major frustrations are, and yeah, I mean, he gave all of the glue, he gave all the context that was required to understand everything, and even came in with like a counterbalancing point of how to do something like this correctly. A counterbalancing point from Gacha Smack on how to do this correctly. He even ended it off with a bit of a pipe dream, a literal pipe dream of how he wants the state of the games to be. But the issue is, when a content creator's livelihood depends on people talking good about the game, intrinsically linked to a parent company like Hoyo, their livelihood is dependent on them talking about the game well, and them having nothing but positive things, no critiques, then that just means this sort of discussion and this sort of constructive criticism, whatever you're going for, Glaive, it literally cannot happen. It literally cannot happen. And so my opinion on the whole matter is, if a creator has early access, if a creator has like financial benefits, gets like packages from the company, gets like XYZ things, financial benefit of some kind, just know that you're not going to get a legitimate discussion out of them, and they're not going to be raising legitimate points. And you can't, especially in the area of critiques, take that sort of content creator or take any argument that they're making seriously, because they will literally lose their job if they do that. And my opinion is, well, if it's their job, it's their job. But that also means that, like, hey, I'm probably not going to buy what they're selling when it comes to a topic like this. And that's just how it has to work, unless you know that they've broken those ties with a company like Hoyo. So with that, let me know what you all think. I thought that this was a banger vid by Glaive, and peace out.